In this episode, let's talk about who you should be taking advice from in a real estate transaction and maybe who you should be ignoring. This is episode 14 of 3 Things with Darin. I am Darin, and today I want to talk about who you should be taking advice from in a real estate transaction, because there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of advice when it comes to buying or selling real estate. And the best parallel that I can give you on this is we go through our first pregnancy, my wife and I. Our doctor said to us, if you have questions, concerns, bring them to me. Don't Google them. Don't go to WebMD, because your situation is unique. You have a unique body. This is your pregnancy. This is your thing. Don't look at other information online for this process when people could be just completely misinforming you. So you want to be cautious about who you take advice from. So I would take that same advice and share that with you when it comes to a real estate transaction, because there's a lot of people out there that maybe they feel like they have experience, or maybe they don't even, they just have an opinion that they really want to share, and you should be cautious about how strongly they want to share their opinion. So maybe they watch a lot of hours of HGTV, maybe they just bought a home recently, or maybe they watch a lot of episodes of 3 Things with Darin. Whatever it is, don't be taking advice from the person who's watching a lot of episodes of 3 Things with Darin. Take advice from Darin. So thing number 1 on who you should be taking advice from: experience is good when it comes to real estate transactions. Experience is good. So the number of years involved is not a bad thing. Yeah, it's great that there's a lot of technology out there nowadays, and you could be authenticing and e-signatures, and maybe a real estate agent with more years experience isn't caught up on all that stuff, or online home search and all of those things. But let me tell you, there's just something about being in the trenches, going through a certain number of transactions, being involved in that process a certain number of times over a certain number of years. There is something to be said about the years of experience involved. So again, that person that's watching a lot of hours of HGTV, or your coworker that just bought their home for the very first time, or someone's watching a lot of episodes of 3 Things with Darin, maybe not the best person to be taking advice from and going to with your questions or concerns about buying real estate. Find that agent that has a few years of experience at least, and be asking them. Thing number 2, instead of years, the number of transactions is actually better, but be cautious of too many transactions. And here's why I say the number of transactions is better than actually the number of years. Would you rather have an agent that has 5 years experience, or I see some agents out there bragging about having 30 years of experience, but they do 2 or 3 transactions a year? Versus take the agent that has 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, but does 10, 20, 30 transactions a year. So they're actually more up to date on what the rules, regulations, and law, and what that buying and selling process looks like now, versus the agent that has 30 years of experience but only does this a couple times every single year. So look at the number of transactions that a real estate agent is doing. But I caution you on the too many real estate transactions. If someone's saying, hey, I sell 100, 200, 300 homes a year, I'd be asking them, how many of those are you specifically, individually involved with personally yourself? Are you personally involved in those real estate transactions, or do you have a lot of people and a lot of moving parts to it? And it's okay to have a lot of people and a lot of moving parts, because specialization is great, but just figure out how many do you personally serve yourself and get a real number out of them. Go, well, personally, I'm actually only involved in doing, 20 of those, and then there's 10 other agents that are doing another 20. Oh, okay. Get a real number out of them, because there's not enough time in the world for one agent to personally, individually sell 100, 200, 300 homes a year. Thing number 3 that you want to look at, that I believe someone who has experience, someone who's an expert, knows all the things that can go wrong. And so I'd be asking that of what can go wrong during my home shopping process, my offer process, the negotiating. What things can go wrong once we're under contract and it's going to closing? What's the things that can go wrong if I price my home wrong? What's the things that can go wrong if I don't market my home correctly? An expert will know everything that can go wrong because, again, there's so much information out there that exists today. A lot of people can come off looking like an expert by regurgitating a lot of what they've heard without actually doing it themselves. And you gain experience by a lot of doing. So I believe experts know all the things that can go wrong, because if you're going to do something, a lot of times things go wrong. It can be a real estate transaction, can be messy. And that's when you really want the expert, not the person that pretends to be the expert or the newbie that's never been in this situation before. So don't be afraid to ask them, hey, what can go wrong in this? I actually want to know, because I think experts know what can go wrong. Thank you for watching another episode of 3 Things with Darin. Hey, if you have questions, concerns, you want to know what can go wrong with a real estate transaction, ask me. Find me on Twitter at Darin Persinger, or send your questions via email, questions@DarinPersinger. Let's get your questions answered. Before you go, are you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Click it somewhere up here or over here. Or if you're watching this video somewhere else, go to youtube.com/Persinger Group. Subscribe and share.